So we're still here in Australia. This is the third podcast of the Real Aussie trip with me, James Suckling, and senior editor Nick Stock. And it's been a great trip. It's the end. We're driving to the airport now. I'm flying back to Hong Kong and Nick's flying back to Melbourne. And we've tasted about 2,100 wines. Nick has a few more wines to taste back in Melbourne. But it's been a great tasting, Nick. We've tasted some outstanding wines, even 100-pointer. So Nick, what do you think?
Yeah, it's we've covered so much ground, and we've met so many people. We've tasted, even if you just take one grape, like Shiraz grape, for example, we've tasted that from West Coast to East Coast. We've gone from Margaret River through South Australia, all through Victoria's regions, and finished up with some sort of cool climate Canberra stuff, and then with very, very old vines in the Hunter Valley. So even just on the basis of one grape, we've seen so many variations.
That's a good point.
Do you have an appreciation, James, for the scale of Australia as a wine continent?
Yeah, I'm really finding the diversity is the most interesting thing, and also a large percent of the wines have a really beautiful transparency in winemaking. And it doesn't matter if they're, let's say, more new wave or natural wines or orange wines or wines that are cloudy, dusty, or weird blends. Everyone's trying to make really well-made wines. It's all about excellent viticulture and winemaking. Of course, there's more commercial wines, and some people, particularly in the Barossa, are making high-octane wines. But in general, I think what's exciting is this new generation of winemakers who appreciate fine winemaking, but at the same time are pushing the limits on more vineyard-driven wines, more quote-unquote low intervention, low sulfur, natural wines, but at the same time they're really well made. That's something that's really been happening the last few years, no, Nick?
Yeah, it is, and I think winemakers now have the courage and the and kind of the wherewithal to make the wines that they know suit the place that they're working in, and so the Barossa makes big rich wine. That's what it does. That is the Barossa, and that's what they should do. But other parts of the country it's actually a lot of breaking of new ground in many regions, because for a long time the tone was set by places like the Barossa in Australia, and people all around the country, no matter what style of region, were trying to sort of aim towards those styles because they were the famous styles, they were the styles that the world was getting excited about. And now that's been completely blown apart, and everyone's looking to be as individual as they can and be as unique as they can, and kind of be as true to themselves and as true to their terroir. That was,
for some of you, if you don't know, in the early 2000s, Australia made a lot of very, very alcoholic and jammy wines, and there was a demand for that style of wine. Of course, also in California, and there were some real there were people that really, really promoted that. A number of wine critics who will remain nameless. But anyways, those wines aren't popular now, and as you know, JamesSuckling.com, we're all about wines with drinkability, and those big, jammy, monolithic wines you can't finish a glass, those are pretty much a thing of the past here, where there's much less of that being produced, right, Nick?
Yeah, there is, and the other thing I think that that is really interesting, and often I think we need to be reminded of, is that the big changes that have happened in the vineyard here, and so viticulture in Australia has always been very strong. It's always technically and in terms of research, and there's always been a lot of investment in viticulture, but that shift towards investing in quality, maybe away from sort of being so caught up on efficiency and being clever in terms of producing quality rather than being clever in terms of producing other parameters. That's been a big shift, and the vineyard people, the sort of legends of Australian wine now are very much the winemakers and the people that are running vineyards and farming grapes, and the terroir is incredible here. The resource of knowledge, a lot of even James you were sort of talking about the early 2000s. I mean, our vines are just our vines are actually so much older now than that time as well. So I think there's all of these kind of factors that are sort of conspiring or combining to sort of create this kind of real moment for for Australian wine, where it is just so, I don't know, it's so interesting. I live here, and this tour has just been fascinating to go in 2 weeks from west to east and see the diversity we've seen.
For me, probably the one of the most exciting moments was visiting the old vines at Tyrrell's, and Barossa has some amazing old vines. I actually shot a video that we'll cut that you can see the vines, and there's Chris Tyrrell there talking about the vines and why they make such excellent wines. And I think it's amazing the biodiversity, the environment, and how these old vines in a place like Hunter Valley as well, that was really crazy how they just flourish and make amazing wines. And old vines in other parts of the world tend to have very low production. Sometimes they don't make wines as good as younger vines, but here in the Hunter they make amazing wines.
And the old vine discussion is really interesting because in Australia, an old vineyard has probably been surrounded by very different conditions to regions in Europe where they've been farming for 1,000 or more years ahead of where we've been farming here, and I always think about these old vineyards like the Tyrrell's Old Patch or like the Yalumba Tricentenary vineyard we went to. There's a lot of them. Barossa, Hill of Grace, we visited there as well, and I sort of think why are these vineyards there, and they've sort of they're not just there by accident. You know what I mean? They're often there because they have produced consistently through all kinds of different climatic conditions, all sorts of different vintages. They've survived economic upturns, downturns, about turns, left turns, right turns, and there's the reason that they're there is because they produce something special, and they consistently produce a level of quality that just sets it apart. And it's great to taste those, and I think that's a big part of the Australian story that we're going to tell is this story of special vineyards, of old ancient vineyards. We're talking vineyards
1860s.
We're talking more than 150 years old.
Crazy.
And that's incredible that you can buy those wines and drink them or collect them and sell them. And it's also incredible. I don't know. What about the prices? I mean,
the prices are
amazing.
Like under $100 for wines like this. Of course, they can be very limited production, like some of the Tyrrell wines that are only a couple hundred cases.
250, 300.
And Hill of Grace, though, that is expensive. That's like $800 US. So that's really, really crazy price, like cult wines. But there are many old wines from Australia that are under $100 US, and if you can find them, that's really exciting. One of the obvious problems that I'm thinking about is a lot of the best wines, you guys Australians drink them all. We don't get to see them outside of Australia. That's a bummer.
I think we do drink them. We enjoy them. We also collect them, and I got to say to everyone that's watching this podcast, if you do come down to Australia, we will open them with you, and we will share them and drink them with you. And James, you've seen that firsthand in the last 2 weeks.
And in restaurants, there's normally a really good selection, particularly of the new up-and-coming producers making really diverse and interesting wines, from classic Shiraz and Chardonnay to like funky Italian grape types like Sangiovese or Tiraldigo, and that's
Sagrantino.
Sagrantino. That's been really fun for me. And the food scene here in Australia is amazing. You have such great ingredients. It's just so obvious. It's like being in California, but maybe even better. The ingredients are just so fresh, and Australians really care about good ingredients, and they don't muck about with it too much. It's really, just well done, precise. You can taste the flavors, and there's nice Asian touch to the food as well.
I think that's a huge influence on the cuisine here, is our proximity to Asian countries, and also our population is very multicultural. We have a lot of people from a mix of Asian countries now residing in Australia, and our food culture is influenced by that. And we love fresh, simple things. We love we love the outdoors. We're great. We exercise a lot. We play a lot of sport, and that sort of fresh, direct, really just sort of fun and vibrant style of food is what we love to eat. And our wine, our modern wine culture has actually, I think, shifted to fit that brand of eating as well. And it's sort of this big combined sort of lifestyle sort of flavor that we have between wine and food. And also the settings, I think. What do you think? Like we're not fussy people.
It's everything is very casual.
Yeah,
that's what I like. It's fun. People enjoy life, and I think that probably you're right. That whole view of life is highlighted also in wines as well. Why people are making more energetic, more balanced, fresher, lower alcohol wines. And I think at the same time, sometimes though, I could say that the fruit can be incredible in a wine, but they almost dress it down too much. And I think that everyone will appreciate that direct, transparent character of many of the top producers of Australia. But then sometimes I think if they dressed it up just a touch of oak, or maybe a touch of I don't know what, the wines would even show more, because the purity of fruit is probably the most impressive thing with so many of the top Australian wines. And again, that's probably what you said. These guys are really into fine viticulture. They spend a lot of time traveling around Europe, classical wine regions, and they want to emulate that incredible terroir-driven character. No?
Yeah, I think there's it's the pendulum swings, and we came off of a period of making wines that there's sort of like a handful of wine styles the whole country was trying to make, and a lot of that had there was a lot of ripeness, there was a lot of oak, there was a lot of everything, and we have such wonderful fruit. Like the fruit intensity in Australian wine is right at the upper limit, and I think there's been a lot of stripping back, a lot of peeling away, a lot of soul searching to sort of find the true character of vineyards, to actually even just to work out where the great vineyards are, and to actually study that side of the equation so closely. And I agree, it's something I got to say, mate, I didn't really see that coming. And when you mentioned that a couple of times, throughout our tasting these last couple of weeks, that it's now a time to sort of just be a little, to actually maybe start to work things and and build some things there that that starts to differentiate different levels of wine quality even more. And in terms of and winemakers have, I think, in the red wine space, with the use of whole bunches in varieties like Syrah, and also in terms of Pinot, and even in other places, there's that willingness on the part of winemakers to do that. In the terms of the white wine space, I think about Chardonnay, and I think I can say hand on heart, outside of Burgundy, the most exciting Chardonnay in the world is coming from Australia.
Really
and there are a lot of techniques, use of solids, and how oak and large formats and even fooders and all sorts of things are now being used there. These moments are all starting, but I think it's time for our winemakers to be a bit more bold and to have the confidence to really make the great wines sort of shine and stand out, with the way they're handled, and I think the way they're finished as well. That idea that purity and rawness is very attractive in a wine is one thing, but there's also like a finishing school or a polish that you see in the great wines of Burgundy, of Bordeaux, of Barolo, Brunello, the Rhone Valley even, and I think that's very important to apply. So, and it's not. I'm not talking makeup or lipstick. I'm talking actually.
That's a good way to describe it.
I'm talking good skin tone and healthy skin and it's those aspects of beauty in wine that I think that will be explored, and it'll be a really interesting message to sort of put out there.
The fundamental part, or the fundamental character of the best of Australia, is all there, and it's all about fantastic fruit, balance, freshness, and drinkability. And I'm really excited for the future. I'm excited because we met probably 200 producers, vintners, talked, shared in fine winemaking, what it all means, and everyone's so positive and excited. And I really get the feeling like the sky's the limit if the winemakers can believe in themselves and just have the confidence to just try a little bit more. Don't be afraid to dial it all the ways back and just leave it there. And I think that's going to happen because everyone we met, the top winemakers, they're traveling the world. They revere the best of Europe, particularly Burgundy, and that's really exciting. So I look forward to tasting again next year with you, Nick, and also Jack, my son.
Hey, Jack.
Hey, Jack.
Miss you, buddy.
He's in Thailand right now, but we'll hook up next week. But in any case, it's going to be great next year tasting the new vintages and trying and finding more real Aussie wines. It's like, it seems the potential here is endless. And also that's why, for example, Asia, as far as export, the Asian markets are on fire.
Yeah.
China's 28% of the market is Australian wine now. I think the US needs to wake up and look at real Aussie wines. It's not just commercial brands like Yellowtail, which is just drinking Pepsi-Cola or something. Australia offers a lot and offers a unique, transparent, handmade quality with unique characters from its ancient soils and diverse microclimates. So Nick, mate, will be here next year, and we look forward to tasting even more wines together.
Can't wait, mate. Let's do it.
Let's do it. We'll see you soon.